All right, welcome North Stars to the PSAT 10 proctor training. You should have in front of you two documents. You should have the PSAT 10 coordinator manual. That's what everyone gets, even though you're not a coordinator. And then the PSAT 10 staff study guide. Created this to kind of go along with the manual to help you remember some of the more important things. But by all means, this is not a substitute for learning and studying the manual. The purpose of this video is to go through the manual, help you learn the important parts, and point out a few things that you need to be aware of. You will be able to skip right to part 2, which is for proctors and monitors. You don't need to worry about part 1, which is for coordinators. I'll take care of that. There is some very clear information here. Like you can see, I've highlighted some of it. That's what I'll do throughout this. Just because I've highlighted it doesn't mean that you don't need to pay attention to the rest. I'm just trying to point out some things. I will cross off some sections that you don't need to worry about, and I'll point those out as we go through. But proctors do need to do the following before test date: know when and where to report for testing. Be thoroughly familiar with the test procedures. Participate in this training that you're doing right now. Congratulations, you've got that one marked off. Make sure you read part 2 of this manual. And then on test day, you're going to assume responsibility for the test materials. Prepare the testing room. Administer the test according to the directions. Complete the seating chart and return the test materials. And we'll go through all of those sections here in a little bit. So before test day, again, take time to study these scripts and make sure you know what you're doing before you get into the room. You're going to review and sign the testing staff agreement form. That's a Google form that has been shared with you. It's also on the staff website. Once you get done with this training, make sure you do that so we know you've done the training. If you're testing students with accommodations, you're going to have a separate script. You're going to make sure you are familiar with that as well. Please take a close look at that script so that you are sure that the script you're using is appropriate for the student or students that you have in the room. We've told you which scripts to use on the website and on the form, rosters and such, but it's important that you double check that and make sure that those match, and ask questions if you think that maybe it doesn't. We're going to skip the next couple of pages because this is about the pre-administration session. We are not conducting a pre-administration session, so you can cross these off. We're going to get here to prepare to administer accommodations. This actually talks about the different scripts. Most of you are going to use standard time, script 1. This is also, if you're with a student who has breaks as needed and no other accommodations, they'll use script 1 as well. Script 2, standard time with students with extra breaks. So they still have standard time, but those extra breaks are put in there for those students. Script 3, now we're talking about students who have time and a half. They get that on the entire test, or script 4, double time on the entire test, or pre-recorded audio format. These two scripts are done over 2 days. We do have a couple of students that are going to use combined scripts. We have some students that have math only extended time. They'll actually use scripts 1 and 3 combined. If you're using other scripts, you're going to eventually skip ahead to a different part of the video to watch about the scripts. But for now, everyone's going to stick with us, and we're going to talk about testing information that applies to everyone throughout the exam. So during test day, as we said before, you need to assume responsibility for materials, prepare the room, make sure that you administer the test according to directions, complete the seating chart on the back of the manual, and return the test materials. So on the back of the manual is the seating chart. We'll talk a little more specifically about that in a few minutes. Please be sure that you post this information for all of the students. This will be also listed on the cover sheet that you'll receive in your box with the date, AI code, address, and the testing room code. Testing room code will be listed on your roster as well. It's important that you count for all the test materials. You'll receive items such as a room roster, testing room materials report form, test books, answer sheets, and other things. You're going to need to count those materials multiple times. So once you receive them from us, you'll count, make sure that what we say, if we say we've given you 25, that you do have 25. You're going to count them when you distribute them. You're going to count them when you collect them, always making sure that that number matches. When you admit students to the testing room, they are not going to choose their own seats. You are going to assign them seats alphabetically if you want, preferably not. It should be more random seating arrangement. You will receive seating cards that you can use to put the seats out and put students into places. You're going to have two rosters. On both rosters, you need to mark P for present, A for absent. The first roster is going to be picked up after testing has started and taken to attendance, so they can mark students who are absent. And then the other one is going to stay with your box and eventually get turned into College Board. So it's important that both of them are filled out. Collecting student belongings. We're going to follow option 2, as we've done before. Students are going to turn their phones off. You're going to remind them at the door. You'll remind them multiple other times throughout prior to the test to turn those phones off and to put those in their backpacks and move the backpacks or belongings to the side or the front of the room, away from them, and then not to be accessed again until testing is over. If students have snacks or drinks that they want during the breaks, they need to take them out of the bags prior to testing and put those underneath their desks. They cannot access those bags once testing starts. So the phones and other devices, again, should remain out of reach and inaccessible until the testing has concluded. Late arrivals. You can let students come in late as you're reading the directions up until the point where you're starting the timed portion of the test. This is section 1 reading. There are bubbles that students may miss, not have filled out. They can fill those out after the test, so it's okay to let them in late. Administering the test, again, you're going to administer the sections in sequence. You're going to read the scripts as they're written, complete the count of materials, maintain security, and report any irregularities. Timing. Students must be given the entire amount of time. They cannot move on to the next section until time has been called. And you need to record the start and stop times in the script, but also post them for students. And you'll announce the times at regular intervals as noted in the script. Do not end a section early. Even if everyone is done, the allotted time must elapse. And then immediately inform me or Sarah if there's any timing irregularities. Counting materials, as I said, you're going to, on the testing room materials report form, this will be provided for you on a separate sheet. We will list the number of books that you receive and the serial numbers. You need to verify that's correct. And then after testing, you'll indicate which ones are used, which ones are unused. You'll sign the form and turn that back into us so we can submit it to College Board. So it's important that you do that accurately. You're going to use the chart on the back of the manual to record the serial numbers of the test books. So as I mentioned earlier, on this chart, as shown in the example, you're going to list the serial numbers of the students and where the books were during testing, and then the arrows, as you can see, to show the direction you use to pass those out. You'll complete this section and this section. Don't worry about the tracking numbers. I will take care of that. So don't worry about that. All right, maintaining security in the testing room. You're going to remain vigilant. You're going to make sure that at least one staff member is in the room at all times. Make sure students don't access calculators, other prohibited devices at the wrong time. Don't leave materials unattended. Breaks. Again, don't allow students to access their bags, backpacks, lockers, anything until the test is over. If students do want to eat and drink during breaks, they may do so. They're going to stay in the room to do that because we're all going to take breaks in the rooms. We are not taking breaks at the same time. You're going to need to keep students quiet as well, since the rooms next to you will probably still be testing. You can give students permission to go to the restroom 1 or 2 at a time, but they cannot go as an entire class. We just don't have the staff to accommodate that. Irregularity report. If there is a need for you to complete an irregularity report, or you feel there's some type of irregularity, please contact me or Sarah immediately. We will come to your room and help you figure out what needs to be done and get you those forms. At this point, standard tests are going to go to page 67, and eventually everyone's going to go to page 67. This next section talks about accommodations. Later in the video, for the different scripts, we're going to talk more about this section. But right now, everyone should please turn to page 67 in their manual, and we'll talk about test day scripts. So page 67, you are going to pick up materials in the LRC on test day, and this is where everyone will begin on the day of the test. As it says, you're going to read the script out loud exactly as it's written. For any students who didn't attend a pre-administration session, which again, for our students is every one of them, we're not doing it for pre-administration. Directions for fields 1 through 8 are given before the test. All students need to complete fields 1 through 8. Yes, some of that material, that information is on the pre-ID label, but they still need to complete this. And there are some other fields that we will also complete afterward. You're going to read the sections in shaded, and they're going to continue through with the instructions following through. Collecting belongings, as we said, you're going to do option 2 for collecting belongings. At this point, then it directs you to check for prohibited items. You're going to walk around the room. You're going to check, make sure they have acceptable calculators and everything else is put away. I highlighted a few things to watch for: smartwatches, wireless earbuds, highlighters. These are a few things that we've seen recently that students are having during the test, which can cause an irregularity. When you're looking at calculators, there is a list in the back of the book, but basically you want to look for QWERTY keyboards. If you see a QWERTY keyboard, it's not acceptable. Just about all the other ones are. At this point, then you're going to distribute student answer sheets. It is important to make sure the student receives the answer sheet with their ID label on it. I've crossed off a few sections. We're not doing a pre-administration, and these are about students from other schools, which we won't have. As you continue through the instructions, field 5 asks about student's state ID number. That is listed on their label, so they just need to transfer it from the label onto the correct bubbles. You're going to finish fields 6 through 8, and then you're going to distribute the test books. Again, test books need to be distributed in serial number order, and this is then where you're going to record those on the back in the seating chart so you know where everyone was. I highlighted this section because this is commonly missed. On the back of the test book, it's important that students fill out the school code, their name, and the testing room code. Again, all that information is on your roster. As you continue through the instructions, you're going to get to the completing the certification statement. It is important that you walk around and check, make sure the students have done the certification statement and signed that. All right, if you are doing pre-recorded audio, you are going to now skip ahead in the video to the pre-recorded audio script 5 section. Everyone else is going to continue to follow along here. So all other students. I've highlighted field form code, test ID, and test serial book number, field A, B, and C. It's important that students fill these out and fill them out correctly. If they don't, then their tests might be scored improperly. So it's important that you check that they're filling these out. Field D is testing room code. Again, we are using that, so it's important that you have the students fill that out. In most cases, it is your room number, but not all cases. All right, at this point, you're then going to proceed to the appropriate script. So based on the information you've been provided that's listed, make sure you go to the right script. Advance in the video to that spot. Most of you are going to stay with us through script 1, standard time. So let's talk about that. First test is the reading test. It's 60 minutes. This is the point I referred to where you do not admit any other students because you are now starting the timed portion. Again, you're going to read what's in shade, and you can continue through the administration. You're going to start the exam. You'll record start and stop time here. While the students are testing, please be sure to do the following. Post the start and stop times on the board. Walk around the room, check to make sure they're all working in the correct section. And then this is the time where you should complete the seating chart on the back and indicate the direction you passed out books and where the serial numbers are. At the end of that first test, there is a 5-minute break before you go to section 2, the writing language test, 35 minutes long. You'll record the start and stop time here again before you move directly to section 3, the math test, no calculator, which is 25 minutes. After that test, I'm going to record information here. There's a 5-minute break after that test before section 4, which is the math test with calculator, which is 45 minutes long. You'll record the start and stop time here, and then you're going to come to the end of the test. And you're going to proceed to the dismissal section on page 107. So when we turn to page 107, we're going to see this is after the test and dismissal. At this point, then you're going to collect from each student the test books and the materials in the same order in which you distributed them. You're going to make sure that fields 1 through 8 have been completed. And then we're going to go to script C if no students have completed the information, because we did not do a pre-administration session. And we're going to complete the answer sheets. Students are going to complete fields 9 through 13, which is their address. There is information in the student answer sheet instructions if they need help with abbreviations or anything along those lines. We are then going to skip these sections. So fields 14 through 22, it is important that students skip those sections. Those do require parental consent, which we do not have. So be sure to skip those. We're then going to get to collecting answer sheets and dismissing students. This is where you'll follow the instructions to transcribe responses if you have a student who's approved to write in their book. And then we're going to finish up materials here. You're going to ensure that the seating chart is complete. Make sure the testing and materials form is complete. Make sure your room roster is complete. Make sure all the materials are collected. After the test, then, students will complete the Naviance activity on their Chromebooks. They've been instructed to bring their Chromebooks, and the counselors have put together an activity for them to complete once their testing is done. Students must stay in the room with you until 11:45. After 11:45, they can be dismissed, and students who have rides or who are walking are allowed to leave the building. Students who are waiting for the bus should go to the cafeteria, and the bus will run at 1 o'clock. You will return materials to the LRC, and that will be the end of your obligation for testing. Thank you. Please make sure that you complete the staff testing agreement form at this time, and you are done with your done with the video. Please make sure you continue to familiarize yourself with this material and ask any questions if you have them. Thanks. All right, script 2, accommodated testing, students with extra breaks. Before we go into the script, let's talk about just administering accommodations. This section begins on page 62. We referenced it earlier in the first part. You want to kind of go through that and take a look. There's one section in particular you need to be aware of, and that is here with breaks and extended time, especially here because you are doing extra breaks, as it says, script 2. That is the script you're using. There's extra breaks built into that script. You may have students with extended breaks or breaks as needed as well. Those are described here. Extended breaks are going to double the time of those existing breaks, and breaks as needed, the students are going to do they're going to take breaks as they need to. One other thing to be aware of in this section then is also going to be, if you're a human reader or a scribe, know how that works by taking a look at these sections as well. At this point, then, I'm going to have you turn to script 2, which is here on page 77, and looking at the idea of standard time with extra breaks. You're going to start right in with section 1, the reading test. You can see there's the first extra break built in, so it's split into two 30-minute sections. This is the point where if any students arrive late, you do not let them into the room, because you are now starting the timed portion of the exam. So you're going to read the sections that are shaded, and we're going to continue on with the test. First section, you're going to record your start and stop times here. You're then going to, while the students are testing, post the start and stop times, walk around the room to make sure that they're on the right section, and this is the time to complete the seating chart on the back of the manual. Here's that first break, and then you record start and stop time for the second part of that first test. After that test, then there is a 5-minute break before we proceed to section 2, writing and language tests, which is 35 minutes long. There's not an extra break here. You're going to record start and stop time. And then there's a break here. This is an extra break. This is not part of the standard time. Everyone else is moving right into section 3, but you'll take a break here. Section 3, math, 25 minutes. And here you're going to record that time. 5-minute break before we go into math, section 4, math with calculator. And again, here's the extra break in the middle of that. Record for the first part of it. There's the 5-minute break. Record for the second part. Once you get through it, then you're going to turn to page 107 for the dismissal. This is going to be the same for all the rooms. All rooms are going to dismiss the same procedures following this information on page 107. So you're going to collect the test books and materials in the same order you used to distribute them. Make sure that you've checked fields 1 through 8. Everybody's got those filled in correctly. We're going to proceed to script part C, option C, because we did not do a pre-administration session. Students are going to fill in fields 9 through 13. This is their address. You can use this information on student answer sheet instructions for abbreviations and such. You can see that this is optional, so if students don't know their address, if they're having trouble with it, don't stress. It's okay if they don't get it filled out. We are going to skip fields 14 through 22. These require parental consent. We do not have that parental consent for any of our students, so it is important that students do not complete those sections. You're then going to get to the part here on collecting answer sheets. Make sure that you just transcribe responses if you have any students that are approved to write in their books. And then finally, the very finishing up, we're going to ensure the seating chart is complete. Make sure the testing room materials report form is complete. Room roster is complete. All the materials are collected. After the test, then, if you have time in your room, which you should because you're doing standard time, students complete the Naviance activity on their Chromebooks that the counselors have put together. Information will be in your testing box. You are going to keep the students until 11:45. At that point, they can all be dismissed. If students have rides or they're walking, they can leave the building. If they're waiting for the bus, they should go to the cafeteria and buses will run at 1 o'clock. You are then going to return your materials to the LRC. That concludes the video training. If you have any questions, please be sure to ask. Make sure you're familiar with the appropriate script. And at this time, then also make sure that you complete the staff test agreement form, Google form that was sent to you. Thank you. All right, script 3, 50% extended time. Before we go into the script, we want to talk about administering accommodations on page 62. We referenced this earlier, but I want to point this section out. Make sure you do take a look at this. There's a couple things that I want to make sure to highlight. One is administering accommodated breaks and extended time. Even though you're doing 50% extended time, you may have some of these break situation. Extra breaks are built into 50% extended time, so that's just automatically part of it. You may have a student who also has extended breaks, in which case then you need to double the length of that break. So a 5-minute break would become a 10-minute break. Breaks as needed then also is described here as well. You may also be a human reader, or you may be a scribe, in which case you should take a look at these sections and be sure you're familiar with that. Let's go ahead and proceed to the script itself. So script 3, time and 1/2, begins on page 83. So if you want to go ahead and turn to that, and we'll go ahead and start. We begin with section 1, the reading test. As you can see, here's one of the extra breaks right here. It's already broken up into 2 sections with a 5-minute break in between. You are going to record the start and stop time here. While the students are testing, you're going to make sure that you post the start and stop times on the board. You're going to walk around the room, check that everyone is working on the correct section. And you are going to complete the seating chart on the back of the manual to indicate how you distributed those. Here's where that first break is. And then you're going to record start and stop time for the second section. 5-minute break. We're going in section 2, writing and language, 53 minutes. It's not broken up. You're going to record start and stop time here, and then here's another break. This is another extra break that is not part of the standard testing. Math section 3, no calculator, 38 minutes. Start and stop time, another break. Then we go into section 4, math test calculator. Again, this one's broken in half with an extra break in the middle. So you're going to record start and stop time here in 2 sections where there's the 5-minute break here between. Once you get through section 4, then you'll see you're going to move to page 107. for the dismissal. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. This is the same for everyone on page 107. After the test, you're going to collect from each student test books and materials in the same order you distributed them. Make sure they've completed fields 1 through 8. And then we're going to go to option C because we did not do a pre-administration session. Students then are going to complete fields 9 through 13, which is their address. If this is, as it says here, optional, we would like students to fill it out, but it is optional. If students are struggling with it, they don't know their address, anything like that, don't stress over it. We are going to skip fields 14 through 22. These require parent consent. We do not have that parent consent, so it's important students do not complete those. Then you're going to move into collecting answer sheets, dismissing students. If you are transcribing, because a student has permission to write in the book, only if that's listed as accommodation, you'll follow these instructions. And then you get to the very last section here, finishing up. Make sure the seating chart is complete. Testing room materials report form is complete. Room roster is complete. All your materials are collected. You're going to turn those into the LRC. But before that, your students are going to complete the Naviance activity on the Chromebooks if you have time. Having time and a half, you may not have time. Don't stress if you don't. You are going to keep students until at least 11:45. Once we get to 11:45, or if it's after that when you finish, students can leave. If they have a ride or they're walking, they can leave the building. If they're waiting for a bus, they need to go to the cafeteria. The buses will run at 1 o'clock. That's it for the video portion of this. So make sure you familiarize yourself with the book. Make sure you complete the staff testing agreement on the Google form that you were sent, and ask questions if you have them. Thank you. Script 4, 100% extended time. Before we get into the script, I want to talk about administering accommodations on page 62. We referenced this earlier. I just want to come back to it. Please make sure you familiarize yourself with it. We want to look at a couple sections in particular. Administering accommodated breaks and extended time. In your room, you need to take a look and see what breaks are assigned. If there is breaks as needed, this is how that would work. Same if there's extra breaks are going to be built into 100% extended time script, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you do have extended breaks as well, then those are going to be double in length of any breaks. And additionally, there's 2 sections here: administering by human readers, administering scribes. If you are either or both of those, please make sure you familiarize yourself with those sections. If you have any questions, please see me or Sarah, and we will help you through that. Next thing, then let's advance to the script. So script 4, double time or 100% extended time, begins on page 88. So let's take a look at that and go through there. So it's going to be a 2-day test. So let's look at the first day first. Section 1, reading test, is broken up into 2 parts, 2 60-minute sections split by a 5-minute break. You're going to record for the first 60 minutes start and stop times here. While the student's working, you're going to post start and stop times, make sure they're in the right section, and complete the seating chart on the back of this manual. You will then, like I said, have a 5-minute break and record the start and stop times for the second part of that test here. There's then a 5-minute break before we go to the second section, which is writing and language. That is 70 minutes straight through. So you're going to record start and stop times here, and then that'll get you to the end of day 1. Now, depending on where things go at the end of day 1, if there is time, you're going to have the student complete the Naviance activity on the Chromebook. If not, that's all right. Don't stress over that. You are going to keep the student, though, until 11:45. That's when we can dismiss students. If students have a ride or they're walking, they can leave the building. If they're waiting for a bus, the buses will run at 1 o'clock. They can go to the cafeteria until that time. You're then going to return all your materials to the LRC and get ready for day 2 of testing. Day 2 begins here. On day 2, you'll pick up your materials in my office, and we'll begin here with the instructions, again, reading the shaded areas. We're going to start here. This break is only for students of math-only extended time. so that's not going to apply here in this point. This section 3 math test, no calculator. First part is 50 minutes. Record start and stop time here. There's a break after that, and then we'll go to section 4 math test with the calculator. You can see that is broken up into 2 sections with a 5-minute break. So then record the start and stop time for the first part here. 5-minute break. Record your start and stop time for the second part. And then we're going to proceed to page 107 for the collection of the test books and other materials. So on page 107, you see here we're after the test. This is the same for everyone. You're going to collect from each student the test books and materials in the order that you use to distribute them. You're going to make sure fields 1 through 8 are completed. And then we're going to go to instruction set C because we did not do a pre-administration session. Students are going to complete fields 9 through 13, which is the address portion. If they don't know their address, don't stress over it. This is an optional section. We would like them to do it, but it is optional. Fields 14 through 22, we are going to skip. Those we need parent consent for. We do not have that, so we won't be doing those fields. Then you're going to get to collecting answer sheets, transcribing responses. If your student is approved to write in the book as an accommodation, that's the only students that should do that. And then finally finishing up. Make sure the seating chart is complete. Testing room materials report form is complete. Rosters are complete. All materials are there and collected. This is day 1 instructions, so you don't need it'll be different on day 2. Once students are complete, then they can go ahead and head to class for whatever period we happen to be in at the time. That's the end of the video training. Please make sure you familiarize yourself with the book. Complete the staff testing agreement Google form that you were sent, and ask any questions if you have them. Thank you. All right, script 5, MP3, text to speech, pre-recorded audio, interchangeable terms there. Before we go into the script itself, I want to take a look at this section we talked about before on page 62 about administering accommodations. So you do need to make sure that on test day you are posting information for students using the pre-recorded audio format as instructed here. There's information here that you need to familiarize yourself regarding the pre-recorded audio format on the steps here. Ben and Tanis will be available to assist with this, but it is important that you are familiar with this as well. Information here in regards to breaks within that room, you will have extra breaks that are built into the pre-recorded audio. You may have students with extended or breaks as needed, so it's important that you familiarize yourself with what those are as well. On the next page, human reader scribes, you won't need to worry about that because that's not something that's done with pre-recorded audio. So let's go ahead and go to the script. Script 5 for pre-recorded audio format does begin on page 94. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We are looking at students who need to download the test form. We're not doing flash drives. So this is information that you need to know. We are going to have index cards with 10-digit SSD numbers written on it for the students. So those will be provided for you so that students can have that information. Again, you're going to read the information in the shaded boxes. As we're going through field A, form code, field B, test ID, you can see I'll move it over. You can see I highlighted and starred those because they are important, as well as field C, test book serial number. These are important that the students get these correct, otherwise their scores, their tests may not be scored properly. So you need to check those as it says to walk through and check that. Field D is testing room codes. We are using those, so it's important that you check that as well. Most likely is your room number, but not necessarily. So again, what you're reading, skipping this section here because that's flash drives that we're not using. And then you're eventually going to get over here into section 1, the reading test. All MP3 is 100% extended time, so that doubles the time here to 120 minutes. There's a 5-minute break between the 2 sections. you're going to record the start and stop time of that first 60-minute session here. While the students are testing, make sure you post the start and stop times, walk around, make sure they're all working in the correct section. And then this is the best time to complete the seating chart on the back of the manual, as we talked about before. You are going to have a 5-minute break and then another 60-minute session. After section 1, there's another 5-minute break. And then we go into section 2, writing and language test, which also is doubled. So 2 sections with a 5-minute break between. Post start and stop times here. 5-minute break, 57-minute section there. That's going to take us to the end of day 1. Here's your continue with the instructions here. End of day 1 is right here. You are going to keep students in your room until 11:45. Depending on how you get started, you may have extra time, you may not. If you do have extra time, there's an Naviance activity that the counselors have put together. We would like students to complete that if there's time. If there's not time, don't stress over that. When you're done, after 11:45, students can be dismissed if they have any time after 11:45. If they have a ride or they're walking, they can leave the building. If they're waiting for the bus, they should go to the cafeteria, and the buses will run at 1 o'clock. You'll return your materials to the LRC. For day 2, you're going to pick up your materials in my office. We'll have them there for you. This is where you're going to start your day 2 instructions. Just as before, we're going to go to option C because we do need to download the test form. You'll read the shaded sections. Day 2, you're going to do the math test. So it's section 3, no calculator. There's no break on this one, just 15 minutes. Record your start and stop time here. And then we'll get the 5-minute break before going to section 4, math test with the calculator. This one is broken up with a break, 2 45-minute sessions. Start and stop time here. 5-minute break, start and stop time for the second part. That's going to take you to the very end. You're going to finish up the test and you're going to proceed to dismissal, which for you is just right here on the next page. This is the same for all tests, no matter what the accommodations are. So after the test, we're going to collect the test books and materials in the order you use to distribute them. We're then going to use option C because we did not do a pre-administration, so we have a little bit more bubbling to do. Fields 9 through 13, students are going to fill in their address. They use information in student answer sheet instructions. If they need to do abbreviations or anything like that, that's all they're going to do. If they are struggling with that, if they don't know their address, don't stress over this because these fields are also optional. Fields 14 through 22, this part here, we are going to skip. These do require parental consent. We do not have that, so make sure students do not complete those sections. Collecting the answer sheets, dismissing students, and transcribing responses if you need to. Our instructions are all here. At the very end then, we're going to finish up, make sure the seating chart is complete, testing materials form is complete, room roster is complete, all materials are collected and returned. That's day 1 instructions, don't worry about that. You're going to follow day 2. When the students are done, you're going to go ahead and send them to class, and then you're going to return the materials to my office. That's the end of the video training, so make sure you familiarize yourself with the book and complete the staff testing agreement form. Thank you. All right, scripts 1 and 3, 50% extended time for math only. Before we get into the scripts and talk about how to do that, I did want to go back to the administrator accommodations sections on page 62, we referenced earlier. Just want to point out, make sure you please read this, familiarize yourself with it, especially information here about administering accommodated breaks and extended time, how to do that, what extra breaks and different breaks is needed are, and how those work, if those may apply to you. And then on the next page, I don't know if these apply to you or not, human reader or administering a scribe. Again, if those apply to you, make sure you familiarize yourself. Ask Sarah or I any questions if you have those. So let's go ahead and turn to the script. So for these students who have 50% extended time for math only, So they will start with script 1 for standard time for the first 2 sections, the reading and the writing, and then sections 3 and 4, the math, they'll go to the script 3. So let's walk through that. Script 1, standard time, reading test, 60 minutes. You're going to record start and stop time here. You're going to post that start and stop time, walk around the room, make sure students are working in the right section, and complete the seating chart in the back with the serial numbers. 5-minute break after that, and then you're going to move on to section 2, writing and language. It's a 35-minute exam. Post the start and stop time here. At this point, students with math only extended time, you're going to move to script 3, section 3 on page 85. So let's go ahead and jump to that. So we're now on page 85, section 3, script 3. So we're time and a half now for the math. You're going to continue reading the shaded sections. Go back a second. This first section, I should point out, is the math, no calculator. Start and stop time here. There is a 5-minute break between. Math section 4, math test calculator. Because it's time and a half, there is a break in the middle, 5-minute break between the 2 34-minute sections. You'll record start and stop time for those 2 sections here. Here's the break between. Once that's done, you're going to proceed, you're going to finish reading, and then you're going to go to page 107 for dismissal. This is the same for everyone. So after the test, you're going to collect each student test book materials in the same order you distributed them. Make sure fields 1 through 8 have been completed. We're going to follow option C because we did not do a pre-administration session. Students are going to fill in just a few more bubbles. Fields 9 through 13, which is their address. Use the student answer sheet instructions to help get them through that if need be. This is optional, so if students don't know their address or struggling with this, don't stress. Fields 14 through 22, we're going to skip. Students should not fill those out because they require parental consent. We do not have that parental consent, so make sure they don't fill those out. That then takes us to the collecting answer sheets, and after students leave the room, if you have a student who has an accommodation of writing in their book, you need to transcribe answers. That information is here. And we get to the end of finishing up. Make sure seating chart is complete, testing through materials form is complete, room muster is complete, materials are collected. If students finish before 11:45, there's a Naviance activity. Students should bring their Chromebooks, have them complete that. If there's not enough time, again, don't stress. Today's about the day's about the testing, not about the Naviance activity. You do have to keep the students in the room until 11:45. After that time, anytime after that, students who are done and have rides or walkers can leave the building. Students who are waiting for the bus should go to the cafeteria, and the buses will leave at 1 o'clock. You should return all your materials to the LRC, and then your testing obligations for the day will be finished. At this point, then you've completed the video training. You need to just, again, familiarize yourself with the book, make sure you're ready to test, ask Sarah or I any questions that you may come up with, and then make sure you complete the staff testing agreement Google form that was sent to you. Thank you.